Let's go over the next definition, which is doorstop, that part of a frame profile against which the door closes. Yeah, doorstop is pretty simple and straightforward, and the definition does require a little bit of, I think, further explanation. So let's switch to the screen view now and let's take a closer look. Okay, doorstop, that part of a frame profile against which the door closes. Okay, well, here's a doorstop right here. We kind of think of a doorstop as all of this, at least I do, but actually there's more to it in the sense that if we think about all this as the doorstop, the issue is, sure, if you were to lay your hands on a frame and touch this protuberance on the frame, you would call it the doorstop, but the doorstop itself, the definition is actually referring to only this face, just this. This part is called the soffit. That's the soffit. Double rabbit frame, single rabbit frame, you know, same type of scenario. Soffit, doorstop, or the face of the stop, or the soffit of the stop would work well, but doorstop is just this right here. This is a cased opening frame. How do we know that it's a cased opening frame? Because it doesn't have a stop or a doorstop. That's how we know it. So at the end of the day, there's not really much to add to the definition of doorstop because it is just this face. You might think of it as all of it, and that's okay, but know that this is the soffit and this is the face. Let's move on to double acting door. That's funny because a double acting door is generally not going to have a doorstop on the cased opening frame, and we'll talk about that. Let's move on. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Before we move on to the next definition, I think it would make sense to actually dissect the doorstop just a little bit more. This is probably covered in other definitions, but the width of the soffit, this part here, is really important. There are pieces of hardware that need to get installed here, and sometimes that hardware runs in conflict. So obviously PA brackets for closers, coordinators need to go there. Weather stripping needs to go there. Strikes need to go there, whether it be surface bolts, exit devices, flush bolts, stuff needs to go there. So when you've got a PA bracket on a closer, you've got weather stripping. This is a pair of doors. You've got an astragal. You're going to need to think about, and if it's fire rated, you're going to have a closer on both leaves. You'll need to think about what you're going to stuff onto the stop, specifically the soffit. What are you going to try to install there? PA brackets, probably a PA bracket. You'll need to coordinate this somehow. Probably weather stripping. All need to go together. So just a couple of words on that. The first thing that comes to mind is the mounting bracket for door closers. And every trim and auxiliary hardware manufacturer provides them. Let's take a look at Rockwood. Mounting bracket for soffit applied hardware. Here's a good picture. I remember being on this job. This was a hotel in Iowa. Great example of when you need to install a coordinator and a door closer. Well, what they've got here is a mounting bracket. Okay, the closer, the parallel arm gets attached to the aluminum bracket. The aluminum bracket gets attached to the soffit in such a way that you're not piercing into the coordinator. And here are some pieces that go together. The reason that the soffit is important is because the size of the bracket, the shape of the bracket, is dependent on the soffit size. So it's important to talk more about the doorstop, because if this is the doorstop, they're not saying doorstop size, they're saying soffit size. Another thing to think about is the projection of the door stop. It's typically 5/8 on hollow metal, but sometimes you'll find it different. You can find it 3/4 if it's required on a job, specifically one that's UL listed. You might find a different projection there. And that is super important to know as well when you are installing hardware that is going to go onto the soffit, such as a roller latch strike. Okay, this projection is going to be really important in terms of what your backset is for the backset on the door of your prep, dependent on what this projection is. So you want to be mindful of that as well. So brackets are really important if you're coordinating them with a bar style coordinator, which is really a slick way to go. When you are dealing with soffit applied hardware, you also have to be mindful not only on how, another thing that you have to be mindful of is how soffit applied hardware is going to affect where you place a door closer on the door. If you've got a header here and now all of a sudden you're adding a bar coordinator and you're adding a mounting bracket like this, all of a sudden where that's going to be, where that parallel arm bracket was going to be here, now it's here. That's going to drop that door closer down. Might be an issue if you've got glass, might be an issue if you've got panels, might be an issue if you're strictly interpreting NFPA 101, where it says that the clear opening height of hardware hanging into the opening cannot be less than 80 inch. That's probably going to be problematic, technically problematic. You might need to really analyze that. Weather stripping is a constant issue when it comes to soffit applied hardware. And what I mean by that is when you have weather stripping up around the end of the opening and you have the need to place something in that same spot, you get into a situation of this, where you have a discontinuity of your gasketing. Okay, soffit applied hardware will conflict here. There are additional pieces of hardware for doing this, such as this zero bracket that I pulled up. Other people make these as well. There is also helping to eliminate conflict on the doorstop, specifically the soffit. You can consider hardware compatible weather stripping. And fun fact about this, I don't think that there is any version of hardware compatible weather stripping that is UL listed. And hardware compatible gasketing is nothing other than a block of aluminum, an extruded block of aluminum with an insert. So what's nice about that is it acts as a mounting bracket as well, just like you see here. So you don't have any lack of continuity of your gasketing. So you could put hardware gasketing, then a coordinator, then a mounting bracket. All that kind of adds up. That mounting bracket, you have to know how wide the soffit is, such that the bracket is the right type, and you just refer to this chart. Is how you would end up doing that. But again, when you have hardware that's going to be mounted on a soffit, let's say you're using a bracket, and now that strike is here, your backset is going to change based on all of that, based on the projection, based on how much further out you're throwing it. So all of that has to be really thought through. It's not difficult to think about all of these things, provided that you're actually stopping to think about it. And for as innocuous as the doorstop is, there's actually quite a bit happening here with it. There's usually in the face of the stop the holes for the inserted rubber mutes. Okay, when I'm doing weather stripping of any type, I will request the factory to omit those holes. They don't need to be there. I find it a conflict to have them there and gasketing installed. If it's a job that I'm doing, I'll omit those and then just simply not supply them, because the gasketing will operate as that silencer functionality. That's pretty typical. When it comes to other hardware that's going to be mounted to the stop face, obviously the typical adhesive style gasketing, a common Pemco S88, will be mounted in the area of the stop face. Some people will apply it incorrectly. I think you should definitely just follow the instructions, meaning where you put it on the hinge jamb and at the header is on the rabbet. But as an alternative positioning, you're going to put it on the face of the stop as well. I've seen it installed in both areas. I personally find it mounted on the Rabbit a nice choice because it will absolutely collapse into this area. If you install it like this, I think you'll get the same net effect, but nonetheless, know that there are instances when you mount it to the stop and then otherwise they don't show it mounted there, and the common installation is indeed on the Rabbit. If you get a little bit more exotic with interlocking weather stripping, yeah, kerfed in weather stripping deserves a mention in a wood frame. This is the face of the stop. That'll be kerfed. When that stop is applied, there'll be a kerf run in the back of it. However, what I was driving at was interlocking metal weather stripping, zinc or bronze, and you'll note that there are times when some of that equipment is mounted to the face of the stop, such as in the 16 series from Dorbin. A company who's been providing weather stripping for probably 90 years would be my guess. Yeah. Yeah. Double hung window. Okay, that doesn't apply. So I think that's all the extra stuff that I wish to say about this, except to think that maybe just finally suggest that, yeah, it's just a doorstop, but there's really a lot going on with just a doorstop. All right, now let's move on to the next definition. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.